Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss, an Aftersight original podcast. In each episode, we share stories, insights, and practical advice to help you navigate the journey of living with low vision or blindness. Together, we'll embrace each step with courage, grace, and hope.
Hello and welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm your host, Kim Wardlow. We are well into our journey of advocacy and have covered several topics so far. Today, this is a really important topic. We're talking about youth advocacy and empowering the next generation. So really advocating for youth, teaching youth how to advocate for themselves. Dr. Charles Powell is my guest today. If you listen to the episode on legal advocacy, you may remember him. He helped us with that. He is a leader in advocacy education and policy reform. He has a doctorate in business administration, is a legal consultant, business owner, and the founder of Blind But Not Broken. He has family members with retinitis pigmentosa and has personally mentored blind students through higher education and employment challenges. So I am excited to have you join us again today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kim. It is definitely an honor to be here, especially speaking on such an important topic of youth advocacy. So it is my pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. Well, let's just dive right into the topic. I feel like this is a rather urgent topic. There's a great need to be able to advocate for youth and to teach youth to advocate for themselves. What are the challenges that you're seeing for today's blind youth?
Honestly, I think that advocating for the youth today is investing in our future. And the challenges that I see, or the fact that I am challenging right now for advocacy for the youth, is basically education, employment, and actually their rights and needs. When we speak about advocacy, we're not just speaking up. We are actively supporting, promoting, and defending the needs and rights of others. And who else more can we do it for than those of our future? When we look at the blind and visually impaired community and the younger generation, they are faced with so much. You have no idea how many times that I hear individuals who are going through college or even high school telling me that, well, this professor said this, and that because I can't see or I'm blind. I need to learn how to get my work in on time, or they're making me change my class course load because of inaccessible material. That is not the ideal what we want to happen with our young generation. We want them to know that, okay, we're not asking for this. This is something that you have to give us. Education should be accessible across the table. I shouldn't have to change my course load or my classes just because the instructor, the teacher, or the professor is not aware on how to make it accessible to me.
Right. And that's really where parents can help advocate for their kids. But of course, the parents aren't in the classroom with the students all day. So it's important that students are trained on how to advocate for themselves.
It is very important that the parents advocate for their children, but more important is we need to teach our children, the younger generation, to advocate for themselves, because you're right. Parents can't be in the classrooms all day, every day. People such as myself, you, or even Mr. Price can't be with them all day, every day to advocate for them. Once they learn to advocate for themselves, they can be there and have the situations addressed and the circumstances addressed at the time that it happened. But it's very important to state, you say parents should advocate for their children. You know how many people out there are not aware of what their rights are? We know the needs of the younger generation that's blind or visually impaired, or anyone with a disability. We know their needs and we know what should be done, but we can't advocate by going out saying, I think we need to do this, or I feel that this need to be done. We need to advocate with the laws, the Americans with Disabilities Act. We need to know and understand that. The Individuals with Disability Education Act. We need to know and understand those guidelines. So what we're doing is telling them what is given to us by right. Most of the individuals, the younger generation right now, they do not know all that they are, eligible for. They don't know what their rights are, and it's not their fault. It's not their parents' fault. These are things that's not brought up. They teach us the Constitution in elementary school. How many educational institutions have you ever heard do a course on the Americans with Disabilities Act or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act?
Yeah, that's not something that's taught in schools. And advocating for yourself in general, I don't think is taught in schools. What recommendations, how would you advise parents? Because obviously, the child is looking towards their parents or towards others, caregivers, whomever they are living within and is taking care of them to help them and guide them. And as you said, most of us probably don't know what our rights are under those laws.
My advice would basically be I'm not just going to say go read the American Disabilities Act from front to back or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It is important to know those things, but I'm not telling you to sit down and bury yourself in it. Just make yourself familiar with it. Know your rights. Many people, and especially the youth who are blind or visually impaired, they're under the impression of saying, I don't want to make waves. I don't want to argue. Let's take it as far as in a job situation. They don't want to make waves because they're so happy to have a job. They don't want to come off like, oh, well, I need this, I need that. And they don't want to draw attention to themselves. But what they don't understand is you're not drawing attention to yourself. You're asking for what you have the rights to have. We have gotten so bad with our youth that they're afraid to speak up. They're afraid because they hear so many nightmare stories how older individuals say, well, don't say this, don't say that, because if you say you can't do it because you need assistive technology, they're going to fire you, or you may make them upset and you may lose your job. We, as the elders who've already experienced this, who already been through this, need to let them know it is okay to speak up for yourself. It is okay to challenge the narrative to break the stereotype. As far as saying what you need to be a better individual, you have the right to speak up for yourself. Advocacy is basically the bridge between injustice and transformation. If we don't teach them how to advocate for themselves, it will not get done. But until they get to the point where they can advocate for themselves, individuals like myself, companies like Divine Visions, we will stand up. We will advocate for them. We will let it be known that we're not taking it no more. We're not sitting down, letting the injustice of being overlooked and underrepresented because people don't know. They shouldn't have to live with the stereotype or the hardship of what's going on today within the blind and visually impaired community to us because people has been afraid to speak up.
Dr. Powell, can you speak to the importance of starting young? Obviously, individuals may lose their vision at different points in life, but if parents have a child and they're in elementary school and they've been blind their whole life, the importance of beginning that training and the parents modeling, advocating for their child, and then training their child to advocate for themselves. The importance to start at an early age.
I totally agree. When we're blind and we teach our children how to navigate things when they're blind. We are quick to teach them how to use assistive technology within the iPhones, the iPads, and everything else. We'll teach them how to use those tools, but we fail to teach them the greatest tool that they will ever have, and that's a voice for advocating for themselves. I feel that if a child is old enough to learn technology or understand that they're blind or they're different or they're visually impaired, they're old enough to know their rights. And if you teach them this at a young age, when it happens, they know that's wrong. It's just like saying basically, if no one, if they see, if you have a young child and they see people treat you in injustice, that's because of your blindness and you don't speak up, when it happened to them, they're not going to speak up. So we have to lead by example. We have to show our children, show the younger generation that it is okay. And we have to represent it in society. We are quick to say that we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but don't. You know how many times people will go around other blind individuals or get together and complain about what's going on and what's being done unjustly to us? If children are around and they hear the complaining and how people get together and they only hear what's going on and not what you've done about it or what you're doing about it, they're never going to learn. They're going to be just like everyone else and accept it like it's okay.
Right, which is not going to help them as they continue on in their lives. Do you have recommendations in how to interact with teachers, how to, some schools may be better at prioritizing accessibility, having screen readers, braille resources, having resources for their children, larger schools. But what about schools that are maybe smaller or out in rural areas that tend to not have as many resources? That doesn't change the rights of the child to have those accommodations. So, do you have any ideas if parents are told, well, we don't have budget for that?
Well, basically, you made a very good statement. When you're in a smaller town or a rural part of the country area, and there's not that many blind individuals out there, that's when the child, their parents, educate them. Don't get mad and then start throwing off laws that we deserve this, we deserve that. Tell them, listen, I know that this equipment or this technology is out there. It will help me be more independent. It will help me perform better. Can we look into it? And if they're in such a rural area and they don't have the Division of Vocational Rehab, they have nothing like that out there, write a letter. Write to a bigger letter, a bigger city. Like here in West Virginia, I'm in a small town called Clarksburg. If I had an individual problem, I'll write to Charleston. It is so much easier to educate them and make them aware because honestly, even me as an older person, I had a professor when I was taking my doctorate program. He used a third party website that was not accessible. He had no idea, the company that he was using had no idea that their website was not accessible with a screen reader. By me calling the company, explaining to them which screen reader I use and it's not working, they put a request into their IT department and brought them aware of the situation. Now, of course, they didn't have it done by the time I got through that semester, but I was able to get alternative assignments. Now, that's on a college level. If you have a school, elementary school, junior high school, or high school, who are not used to or don't have that many blind students, bring it to their attention. You don't have to put it in a nasty way. You guys be like, okay, listen, this is not working with the software that I use, or I need this software to do better. And they don't know. A lot of people don't know, and it's not their fault. So the only thing we can do as we advocate for ourselves and for the younger generation, we're also educating society and the members in society because let's think about it. If you don't have a blind person in your family or you're not related, to blind individuals, you have no idea what's going on. You know how many people got the misconception or underestimate us because they don't know? They only go on by what they see. And we all know, and the media, movies, and things like that, blind people are not represented to the best of our abilities. So the majority of the time, advocating for yourself, others, and the youth is simply educating society on the blind.
Would you recommend parents having like role playing self advocacy scenarios with their children to help prepare them as they're going into school to request accommodations?
Definitely. That is definitely a great recommendation. I recommend that. And also, when you're talking about advocacy, we're talking about the IEP. All
Yes.
schools in the state should have an IEP. They should have an IEP teacher, a 504. That's the first thing that comes with advocacy is putting the paperwork and the policies in place to let you know that. If you have an IEP, there is a IEP blind and visually impaired instructor or teacher in that county. It may not be in that individual school. Even if you're in the royal parts of a state, they have one for the
Mhm.
state. That is not guesswork. That is a fact. So the parents should know when your kid go to school, you prepare them. You let them know when you're setting it up. When you're going to put your child in school, that's the first thing a parent should ask. Do you have an IEP teacher? Do you have an IEP representative? A 504 plan? So yes, when you're at home, teach your children, do role play, do scenarios where if this happened, this is how you address that. And don't fly off the hook. I hear so many parents when their child come home and say this happened and that happened and they need advocacy, they need to talk to this person. First thing they want to do is pick up the phone, call the school, start yelling and cursing. That's not how you do it. You talk to them, you educate them, you inform them what your child need, what they are asking for. And when your child see you at a young age advocating for them and the way you stand up for them, as they get older, they're going to replicate the same thing. Instead of, oh, I got to run home and tell mommy, they're at an age now that they can stand there and advocate for themselves and they know how to support the argument that they're making.
And what are your thoughts on involving the students in their plans? As you said, maybe not if they're kindergarten or first grade, that might be difficult, but as they get older, so that it's not just the parents and teachers making the decisions, but they're part of that decision making process.
I feel when the child is of age, and I can't say what exact age that may be because all children mature at a different level. But a child should always have a say in their education, the accommodations they need. A child also always have a voice. That is why we have advocators or those who advocate for us. We give a voice to the voiceless, but we don't want that voiceless person to stay that way forever. We do it when they're too young to do it, but as soon as they get old enough to advocate for themselves, that's when we step in. But there's also times where we have individuals that's going to have to advocate for a whole group.
Mhm.
For example, when we're in Divine Visions, at Divine Visions, we advocate for the blind and visually impaired community. Not only in schools, we advocate through the law, we advocate through policies. We need parents to teach their children how to advocate for themselves as well as advocating for them. But we also need the bigger picture to advocate for policy change. When we're sitting back and we know what's in the ADA or the IDEA, when we know those acts are out there, let's fight and advocate for stronger acts or laws to support that. If we can advocate, we know what we're advocating for now, but we can also advocate for policy to make changes to make it better for our youth. Because right now, one of the biggest policies that we're fighting at Divine Visions is affordable accessibility tools for the blind and visually impaired. They have so much technology out there that can be very productive, help a blind student be more productive, more independent. But look at the price tags on them. We're trying to make policy and advocate to these big companies. Okay, we understand the cost to make these tools and this equipment, but put it in range that we can afford them. Or advocate for more policies for the Division of Vocational Rehab. Let's fight their policy. We need to advocate on a local level, on a social level, but we cannot forget the legal level.
As children move through school and they've graduated high school, big achievement for any student to when they graduate. It's very exciting. I still remember mine, and it's decades ago. And then different individuals. Some individuals may want to go directly into the workforce. Others may be looking at going to college, and that can pose a whole other set of challenges. And often kids are more on their own when they're in a college or a university setting. But there are offices in schools usually for students with disabilities to be able to request accommodations and those types of things. And I know, as you have already mentioned, you yourself faced challenges once you were in college of getting accommodations, or people just assuming you weren't able to do something.
When you get older, first and foremost, I would be the first one to say, if you come out of high school and you want to go to college, you can do it. So many people feels like getting out of high school, it is a big accomplishment. It is a great accomplishment, but do not stagnate yourself thinking that you can't go to college or you can't do it. Like you said, every college has a disability office, has a disability advocate. When you're looking at colleges to go to, that's the first thing you should check into as a blind or visually impaired student. What are my disability benefits? How are they dealing with this? You should look into that. And if you can't find a disability office, or if they can't help you there, go yourself, learn what they do. We got so many resources out there that people don't even know. We need to start showing these younger generations who are blind or visually impaired that it can be done. You have no idea. And how many people are looking at, okay, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, because it's going to be harder. Anybody going to college for any degree is going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. Just because you're blind or visually impaired, it's going to be different. But advocate for yourself and know, again, the Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act. All of the things that we're bringing up now is in this act. If you're talking about higher education, colleges, institutions, their rules and guidelines, the regulations that they have to follow because you have a disability is there. Again, if you're thinking about going to college, I recommend you read that. I recommend pick it up, glance through it, know your rights, know what you're walking into. Just don't take it on face value that just because they have a disability officer or a disability department that they're going to do it for you. Because honestly, as sad as it is, people in the disabilities offices at some colleges don't know everything. My college that I went to, they can tell you if you're in a wheelchair, what the ramps are. If you on crutches, what's the safe way? They could have told you with any other disability. But when it came to blindness, because I was the first blind individual to go through this university, they had no idea what my needs were. They have a big book or pamphlet that they can go to, but no one is going to know what you need or what helps you better than yourself. That's why I promote the educating yourself on your disabilities, your disability laws, your disability rights. I mean, If you don't know, how do we expect anyone else to know?
Yeah, you might have to do some educating of those around you. Now, I know you have several people in your family that have retinitis pigmentosa, and you mentored your nephew who has RP while he was going through the college application process and navigating accessibility. Could you tell us about a little bit about that? That real life example.
My nephew, I think he decided to go to James Madison. I think he got accepted to several of the colleges. Every college he applied for, he actually got accepted to. So thank God for that. But his thing was, and I sat and I talked to him, and we had the conversation. Okay, we can look at and see what education level, what classes they give you, but let's look into the disability office. Let's look into what are they providing for your disability? How are they going to help you as an individual with low vision? Because he hasn't lost his sight completely, but he is very low
Mm-hmm.
vision. So we looked into the fact, and I sat with him. We made phone calls to the school. We let it be known that, okay, he let it be known. He wrote letters, sent emails, and called the school to let them know I'm coming there in the fall. I am visually impaired. My eye, he told him what his eye situation was, what his eye condition is. What can you offer me? What kind of accommodations do you have for me, and what do I have to do? And that was the smartest thing that he could have did. You don't want to wait. If you're starting school in September, you don't want to call at the end of August and find out what's going on, because your first semester is going to be like going downhill. He got on it now, so now they know what to expect when he get there. He know what to expect. He know where to go, and he know what his what kind of accommodations he have. So if you're going to school, like I told him, do your research. See what they got. Okay, are you using Blackboard? Are you using electronic books? How are you giving us? How do you accept assignments? You have to know all of these things. When I was going through school, basically, their thing was they give out paper. No, I let them know. I got to submit mine through email or Word document or electronically. And most students don't know that they have the right to do that. On Blackboard, everything now is on Blackboard, which is a electronic schoolhouse.
Yeah,
I mean,
not the old
all of your
fashioned with the chalk.
exactly. You ain't got a blackboard with chart with a chalkboard. When I say blackboard, it's an app
Right.
that goes on iOS or your Samsung phone. You can go in there, and your books and everything is digital. So this is what I say you need to know before you even attempt to go to the school. Do your research. Call. Let them get familiar with you. Don't wait till the last minute. Once you know you're coming out of high school and you're going to attend college, when you get accepted to that college or you sign your intent letter, get in there and let them know this is who I am, this is what I need, and see what they're offering. And you can do it. Any blind individual or visually impaired person out there, do not let someone say something that's inaccessible, because that word shouldn't exist. If you know what should be accessible, if it's not accessible now, let's make a policy to get it accessible. Look how long it took us to fight for audio description. There's blind kids out there who was not even getting the full experience of the movies they want to see. They can sit there and listen
Mm-hmm.
to it or have someone describe what happens to it. But through people advocating and fighting and writing policies, Hulu, Netflix, all of the major streaming companies and movie theaters now are getting that audio description. They didn't do it because they like us or they want to be fair. They did it because someone advocated, someone stood up and made policy. And this is what our younger generation don't see. This is what they're not getting taught. They just think, oh, they did it because they know we want to watch a movie.
No.
No, it was done because people are advocating out there behind the scenes, and they can do the same thing.
Yes, and then things
We
like
have to
that
speak up.
become standard and become the norm, which is good, which is what we all want.
It is becoming the norm, but let's look at it in reality. Why is it becoming the norm? Because we have people advocating out there
Yes.
for us. And I would like to mention as well, you don't have to be blind or visually impaired to advocate for the blind and visually impaired. If someone is listening to this podcast today and you're not blind, you don't have a child, or you're not even in the blind and visually impaired community, how could you advocate for us, educate yourselves and others about us? That is the biggest thing right now. Advocacy is another word for educating or informing. If people knew blind and visually impaired people, instead of the stereotype that they got about us, advocating for yourself and others should come natural. We got more people out there who will say, you can't do this, you can't do that because of this, and no one steps up. No one advocates for that person. You go into a job today, over 70% of working age blind and visually impaired individuals, the younger generation, is unemployed or underemployed. That is not for the lack of skill or the lack of talent. That is because we live in a society who has not been prepared or who do not properly accessorize the jobs for us. When they say, when you want to advocate for the younger generation, we need to show them that it can be done. We need to give them how can I say, we need to lead by example, teach by doing. Instead of being afraid to advocate for yourself because you are blind, because you have a disability, take that disability and wear it with pride. We're not broken. We are the people who are tired of being unheard and unseen. We are here. We're going to advocate for our rights. We're going to advocate for our children so they don't have to grow up and just think they got to work at call centers or sewing plants that's ran by the blind. You can be what you want to be. You set your mind to it, you can do it. And if they say it can't be done, that's when you advocate for yourself. And then, not only for yourself, once you get to the point you're older, continue to advocate for the next generation.
And I think that does happen so often. People get relegated. Oh, you're blind. So here are your career options. Kind of like, back in the day, oh, you're a woman. Here are your, 3 choices, things you can do, which of course is not the case today. But often for individuals who are blind or low vision, it's assumed that they can't do things, or an employer will say, oh, this is going to cost me a fortune. I'm going to have to, walk this person to the bathroom every time, or, like some things that are kind of just crazy, but, but people think these things. And so, as individuals are applying for jobs, starting to work in places, working with their employers so that they do have the tools they need. Where do you see challenges, and what's your advice?
One, we will not break the stereotype overnight. We have to show them. One of my things, resilience and determination. I went to job interviews day after day, week after week. And then I got to the point where I walked into a job interview with my briefcase. I had my computer, my hotspot, and everything in my briefcase. And when I sat down at that interview table, I let them know, yes, I'm blind. And they was like, well, how would you do this? How would you do that? Instead of explaining everything, I pulled out my computer, I turned it on and told them to give me a task that they do on the floor. And when I turned my computer on and Jaws started speaking and I went through everything and did everything they asked me for, they was amazed. They had no idea. When I got to my office, when I actually started, I had an individual walk me from my office to the kitchen area, my office to the restroom, my office to the doors, the meeting rooms, the conference rooms. After the first week, it was like nothing. But a lot of people in that office never worked with a blind person. They had no idea. And one of the biggest compliments that they will give me as a blind person is, sometimes I just forget you're blind.
Mm-hmm.
And they think it's an insult, but that is the greatest compliment someone can say to me, because when I needed something or when I got there, I asked, like, look, IT came up to my office. What do you need, Mr. Powell? I need this, this, and that. They set up everything. We set up JAWS on my office computer, and we did it. Again, sometimes it just takes you taking that one step further. Don't get in reason to say you can't do it. If you're going out for a job and you're going out into the corporate world, whatever the job is, just show them that you can do it. Even before I got my degrees, I went to a job at Chick-fil-A to wash dishes. And when they started to be like, well, you can't do it, first thing I was like, show me where I'll be working. Describe it to me. And I showed them that I can do it. And my thing was, this is a dishwashing job. I'm like, you give me 2 weeks. If I don't live up to your expectations, I'll be man enough to quit myself. And then you had to get bold. Like, look, you don't got nobody back there now. You give me 2 weeks, at least you got somebody back there. And I stayed at that job for like a year and a half. So when you go out there and you're fighting a stereotype, to advocate for yourself, sometimes you got to show them that you can do this. Be determined. They're going to look at you and say, they're not going to say, I'm not going to hire you because you're blind, because that's
Right.
illegal. But we all know.
Yeah.
we all know that, okay, this is probably the reason why I didn't get it. We got to prove ourselves to them. And part of the advocating, like I said, is educating.
Can you comment on the importance of networking and mentorship? And I think this is true for everyone, whether you are blind or have low vision or not. That's just very important. But it might be even more important for individuals who are blind or have low vision, just because of some of those stereotypes.
When you're fighting a stereotype, I feel that it's very important that you network. If you know individuals out there who are blind, who are in the corporate world, yes, reach out to them. If you are, I don't care what you're doing or what profession or career you in, reach out to me. I'll write you a letter of recommendation. Sometimes it's just knowing an individual who's out there who has fought the stereotype, who is blind doing the same thing or doing things that you want to do. I think it is very important that you know people or introduce yourself to people who are doing things. We have so many people in the blind and visually impaired community who are making strides and making moves. If you don't know none in your local neighborhood, social media, we got Facebook groups, the blind and visually impaired community. We have people like you guys. We got the blind chick who, oh my God, doing her thing on
Yep.
the podcast. I mean, reach out. Go, seek people out. If you want to know something or how to get past something, I mean, you can always reach out to me, Divine Visions Consulting and Paralegal Services, LLC. And it's not on a business level. Shoot me an email, be like, hi, Charles, I seen you on, Navigating Life Without Blindness. I wanted to ask you a question. I'm open to that. I am here for the next generation, the younger generation. I'm pretty sure on a podcast somewhere in the information, my contact information will be there. So if you ever got a question or you ever need, you just need someone to talk to about battles that you're dealing with because of your blindness, reach out. I'm always here.
We will definitely include your contact information in the show notes. I want to touch on, we talked a lot about advocating for yourself and showing folks that you can do things. But in some cases, it's not just that a blind person can do something, but some industries really could benefit from having blind individuals or low vision individuals who work for them, maybe technology, advocacy. What are some of those areas where you see that if you went in for a job interview, you could say, I actually can benefit you in a way that other candidates cannot because of my vision loss.
Okay, we're gonna sit this sort of because of my vision loss and not on education. You can sell yourself to companies because basically for these companies out there, I will tell you one thing. A blind or visually impaired individual in today's society, we have to work 3 times as hard just to be seen as equal. So you take any individual you have at a company that's working for you now, and imagine them working 3 times as harder. That's what you have in a blind or visually impaired person. We are so under the gun every day to prove ourselves to society as a whole of what we can do, that we are not broken, that we're going to work hard. You benefit from having a blind person because they're not distracted by all the physical things that's going on around them. You have individuals, I've seen it myself. Prime example, you walk into a lawyer's office or you walk into a professional office and maybe you don't got the most expensive clothes. The first thing an individual is going to do when you walk into their office is look you up and down. And even if they don't do it intentionally, they're going to judge you. They're going to judge you on your appearance. If you came into my office, there's no judging on appearance because I can't see you. Another thing, people don't realize when you're sitting back and you're talking to an individual, me, myself, this is just personally, if I'm talking to you, I can get a read on you just by your voice tone, just by the change of speech pattern. People say you can tell a lot from a person's facial expression.
Right.
You got people who can master keeping a blank face and you know nothing, but they can't control their pulse, their heart rate, their nervousness. And all of those things come out in your speech patterns. All of those things come out in the way you say things. So it is an advantage to have an individual working for you who can multitask. Everybody can sit back. If you got to look at your computer and you're typing all day, your eyes is going to get tired. You need a break. Guess what? We don't have that problem. We have in an earbud and we can type all day because we're listening to it. We can, it is so many things we do every day to adapt and to substitute or, accommodate us that we don't have sight that you may not even be aware of that it can be more beneficial to an employer. We know what we can do. When society or these individuals who run these big corporations get the secret, they'll be going out hiring people just because they are blind. It's funny, it reminds me of the movie The Water Boy when Bobby Boucher started playing football and he was dominating everything on the field. Other colleges started taking the water boy and the janitors, putting them on the football team. That's how it's going to be with blind people. When the secret is actually out that we can do things and we work twice as hard just to be seen as equal, and we're proving ourselves to society and ourselves, we're going to work hard. That is the benefit. That's the benefits of having. They say desperate people do desperate things. We are so fighting, those of us who are fighting the stereotype and is trying to break into the corporate world, we're going to work 10 times as harder. And once that get out, hey, it's going to be beautiful.
Well, and certainly for companies that are interested in making their products, especially think of technology, but other things as well, their products accessible, having staff with a variety who have a variety of disabilities can help companies to be sure that what they're producing is accessible and more consumers can purchase it and be able to use it.
If you have, it's just like Meta.
Mm-hmm.
Meta is listening to when they came out with the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, they told you it wasn't for the
Yes.
blind. We didn't make this for the blind and visually impaired community, but guess what? When they started seeing that the blind and visually impaired community was buying them, guess who they go to now? Guess who they look for when they're looking for surveys or they're looking for, how can we make this better? They're going to the blind and visually impaired community. I mean, like you said, how do you know if you're going to be in a company and you're going to make technology for the blind and visually impaired, why won't you hire the blind and visually impaired? Because there's no better person to tell you what works and what don't work than those who you are making it for.
Yes.
It's simple math. Once they catch on to it, and I think, again, this all comes back to advocating and educating. Once people see or understand that our blindness does not make us broken, they will see that we can work and the doors will open. Once we fight for what we need and advocate to the point that, okay, this is our right to have the opportunity to work. And once you give us that opportunity, everyone else is going to see what we can do. It's all a big circle. We're not on the corner begging for change. We're simply asking for opportunity to show you what we can do.
You've given us a wealth of wisdom of today. And we don't want this episode to be, like a conference or a camp or an experience where you go and it's exciting and wonderful, and then you go back to your everyday life and nothing changes. So we really want folks to think about what action they can take.
Think about the actions that you can take. Know your rights. Know that every time you stand up or advocate for yourself, you're advocating for the whole community. And I say this out of much respect and love for everyone. Don't think someone else is going to do it for you, because these stereotypes that's out there about the blind and visually impaired, they're not made up. Everyone is not cut out. Everyone is not out there advocating for themselves. Some people, and it's sad to say, but being totally transparent, you have blind people who said, I can't do it because I'm blind. For everyone that says, I can, I will, and I want to, there's 10 that saying, I can't, I won't, and I don't want to. There are so many out there, and people don't like when you want to speak the truth, but there are so many out there who take their blindness and make them exactly what the stereotypes say. So I think it's important, and I'm not saying it in a mean way, that, there's blind people out there who live up to the stereotype or who actually created that stereotype. I'm just saying, for the younger generation, you can. My grandfather was totally blind. He felt that he had limits, but he was on a farm. He learned to farm, and anything around the house, he did. But the corporate world and outside of his farm, he didn't, because he felt that he couldn't. Me, I don't want to be on a farm. I want to be in corporate America. So it is good for us to show the younger generation of the blind and visually impaired, there are people out there who's blind, who's doing things. It's not a myth. We're not in a movie. We're not, fictional characters. We're real people. So know that you can do it if you want to. Education is empowerment. Just know you're not alone out there, and you don't have to fight the fight by yourself. Once you get into advocating for yourself, you will find out there's many people out there, even myself, I have blind lawyers that I can call and be like, look, I'm facing this problem. I don't know how to deal with it. Can you help me? So don't be afraid to ask for help for those who already been through it. If you don't know how to advocate for yourself, you was never taught, reach out, talk to people. Someone will answer you.
As you said, people don't need to be alone. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about the work you're doing with Blind But Not Broken?
The Blind But Not Broken movement is exactly what it says. People think just because we lost our sight that we lost our vision. My vision has not been clearer than it is now that I'm totally blind. Blind But Not Broken is a movement that's telling the world, I am here. I may not have sight, but I have a clear vision. It is not the vision that sees the world, it's going to be the vision that changed the world. Let's stop it. Everybody say hashtag blind but not broken. I am not enabled to do anything. I'm not, I can do for myself. I am still here. That's the whole purpose that Blind But Not Broken is saying. I may not have sight, but I have a strong vision. And once we get the world to see that, first you need to see it within yourself. You have to believe it in yourself. And then we're going to get the world to believe it. We are changing the stereotype. We are breaking down the doors. We're not on the corner begging for change. We're walking in the courtrooms and the business offices and in the world making change. We're not begging for it. We're making the change. That's Blind But Not Broken.
That's wonderful. And I have a quote noted down, a quote from you where you said, we need to stop asking for a seat at the table. We need to start building our own tables.
Exactly. When I had all of my educational accolades in criminal justice, I applied for paralegal jobs, legal assistant jobs with law firms 30 to 50 miles radius from my home. When everyone kept shutting the door in my face, not giving me the job, I created Divine Visions Consulting and Paralegal Services, LLC, and I made the job. So people, we're not, again, asking for a seat at the table. We're building the table, inviting others to come eat with us. And that's the attitude that I have. If you want to come and eat at the table, pull up a plate, pull up a chair, and let's represent that we are blind, but we are not broken.
I love that analogy. Dr. Powell, thank you so much for all of the information and wisdom that you have given us today.
Thank you very much, Kim, and it's always an honor to be here. And I can't wait till next week to take it further. And like I said, people, my contact information will be in the show notes. Don't be afraid. Drop me an email. I will respond back.
Great. Thank you. And for all of you listening, you can support Dr. Powell's work by following Blind But Not Broken on social media. You can connect with Divine Visions Consultant and Paralegal Services and just honor him on what he's passed on to you today by actually going out and advocating for better accessibility in your schools and your workplaces. We have other podcasts. AfterSight has other podcasts that you may be interested in as well. As I said, we're about to wrap up our advocacy series here at NLVL. And then we'll be in the fall starting a series on safety. Blind Level Tech is our podcast that talks about technology for independence. Blind Sight is our mental health podcast for the community. And the Blind Chick that Dr. Powell referenced is what I think of our fun podcast, because Penn interviews all sorts of interesting people who are blind or have low vision, and it's just always fun and interesting. So definitely check them out. Thank you so much, and I hope the information you heard today will help you navigate your life with vision loss.